Nah, must have just nodded off for a sec. Probably one of those sex dreams I've read about. This symbolism's very disturbing!
Hello Universals fans, welcome to Tennant Month here on Universals, where we celebrate everything David Tennant, 10th Doctor and the 14th Doctor. And I really like the 10th and 14th Doctors, and I really like David Tennant. However, for my first video of the month, I wanted to get something off my chest in a video that I've been wanting to do for a little while now, and I thought Tennant Month would be a good time to do it. And that is the 10th Doctor being included in media featuring other Doctors during their 10 years, but kind of being shoved in, kind of being like the main Doctor's stories, sort of kind of deal. Correction, Tennant months. We decided a little bit after this video was recorded that we'll actually make it 2 months because we've got 2 David Tennants, and it also gives more members more time to do more videos when they may not necessarily be able to. So you got 2 months of David Tennant goodness from hopefully everybody, or at least most of us. So brilliant, molto bene, and allons-y. So what is it exactly that I'm talking about? Because the 10th Doctor and other Doctors cross over with Doctors frequently in multimedia stories. The idea of multi-Doctor stories is an amazing one to fans who love the opportunity to see multiple Doctors from different points in time come together to go on adventures or just sit down and talk for a bit. This is why fans usually hold out for a multi-Doctor anniversary special every decade, or nearly every decade. But alongside the TV stories, we have the audios and the books and the games and the comics, and many of those will have multi-Doctor adventures, not just for anniversary years. From crossover stories to other big notable events that would require a multi-Doctor story or series, expanded media is no short of multiple Doctor adventures, or other Doctors turning up in a particular Doctor's adventure, or in some cases, a story having 2 Doctors in the same adventure but at different points or in the setting's time frame and going on their own routes. However, during Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor's run, although she was the face of the franchise, around 2020, the BBC decided that they would start pushing David Tennant's 10th Doctor a bit more in the expanded media and promotion. Basically, they wanted to shove David Tennant into some of 13's expanded media stories and /or release 10th Doctor expanded media stories alongside 13th Doctor ones. Full disclosure, I'm not counting brand new 10th Doctor stories unless they were released alongside brand new 13th Doctor stories or coincided with them. And I'm not counting Big Finish either, because they do brand new stories with every Doctor they possibly can at that point in time, and they'll release those whenever they want. Although, interestingly, they've announced a new series of 10th Doctor audio starring David Tennant, set to start releasing every 2 months from summer 2027, which is what the 13th and 9th Doctor audio series are currently doing. So it will continue from one or the other of where those finish. If it's the odd-numbered months, it's 13. If it's the even-numbered months, it's 9, and it could be either one. I think it's going to be the odd-numbered ones. I could be wrong. Hello, Nick from the future. I recorded the rest of this video on the 25th of March, and now it's 1st of April. At the time of recording, the video is actually almost finished. And this is not an April Fool's inclusion. Just wanted to quickly add this thing in. So, after recording this video, but before it's gone out, another David Tennant controversy turned up where, with the whole of him appearing more front and centre of the new Who Doctors. This video hasn't actually got anything to do with that. This is actually about stuff that happened before then, and I don't really want to add to the fire of that controversy. I don't think that one's quite as founded, but I do agree that it is kind of annoying that he is put up front and centre and everybody else is kind of behind it. To be honest, I think that thumbnail doesn't really look that very well edited anyway, especially when compared to classic Who ones where, say, Tom Baker is up front and centre, but at least that looks more better edited out, especially since Tom Baker actually is in that spot for the middle position. Maybe if Shooty had come out more front and center as well, it would have been a bit better, but I digress. But yeah, that's controversies also happened up recently, and kind of agree, but also at the same time, it is kind of being blown out of proportion as well. So this video doesn't really have anything to do with that. This is just my stance on that. Also, do check out some recent videos by Faries and Confused Daddy Posed about more about that. Faries talks about it a bit more in detail, and both he and Joe Street, Confused Daddy Posed, cover it very well in those videos. So do recommend checking those out. Now let's go back to 2018, where we got signs of some of this, but not quite gotten out of hand just yet. So Titan Comics are probably the most notable example of what I'm talking about. But before we get into the main examples, we're just going to do a prelude example. Before Titan started their 13th Doctor Year 1 comics, they did 2 prelude comics. The Many Lives of Doctor Who, which is probably the best one to get if you want stories featuring every single Doctor. This and Supremacy of the Cybermen, of course. And they do a story for each of the Doctors leading up to the 13th, who appears at the start and end of the graphic novel because of the regeneration scene from Twice Upon a Time. I don't own a copy of it, but there is a second pre-13th Doctor comics run that actually has a story that leads into the first few adventures of the 13th Doctor Year 1, collected in the 13th Doctor Volume 1, as I've just shown, and that's Road to the 13th Doctor, which includes 4 new stories, 3 each featuring the 10th, 11th and 12th Doctors, the previous 3 main Doctors that Titan had done yearly comic stories with. They did a 9th Doctor year as well, but sadly the 9th Doctor does not appear in this collection. And then a final story that has all 3 of them in it, I think doing their own thing. As I mentioned earlier, 3 Doctors doing their own thing in the same story, and that's what ties in with the 13th Doctor ones that will start afterwards. But interestingly, Road to the 13th Doctor only has, as well as 13, the 10th Doctor on the cover, no 11 or 12. Interesting. So we're already seeing signs of the 10th Doctor being included into 13th Doctor media, even though these comics are stories with 10, 11 and 12 serving as a prelude to 13. Interestingly, Many Lives is numbered 0 of the 13th Doctor range. Road to the 13th Doctor probably feels like it might be more worthy of being the 13th Doctor Adventures Volume 0, because it feels more like a direct prelude to her first run of stories, rather than Many Lives, which is more of a prelude to the 13th Doctor in general. But when we come to 2020, Titan Comics decided that for the second year of 13th Doctor comics, following the completion of her first year and the Time Out of Mind specials comic stories, they decided for the second run that the 13th Doctor should cross over with the 10th Doctor during the events of Blink for him and Martha Jones. Side note, for the fact that Martha Jones has yet to return in brand new Big Finish audios alongside the 10th Doctor. She's done spin-offs and other stuff, but in terms of 10th Doctor audios, she's yet to return. Unless she's going to be doing the new one starting next year, then I think it's actually really nice that Titan, between this and the Once Upon a Time Lord comic, and here's an alternative cover with Martha, where she ends up, of the TV companions, being the main one appearing in the 10th Doctor comics, and the main companion after his 2 new companions. A little help from my friends, or the 13th Doctor Year 2 issues 1 to 4, was intended to be the start of the second run of 13th Doctor stories, with the next storyline being alternating currents, and then a Torchwood crossover with the Corsair as well in the third run of stories for the second year. Unfortunately, that latter storyline was cancelled due to the John Barrowman sexual allegations. As for Alternating Current, it was actually decided to make that the first of the brand new Doctor Who comics series, which is sort of like the basically being like yearly event comic things like the 4 Doctors and Supremacy of the Cybermen used to be. And they used that as the jumping off point for that, and then further ones were released, including the Missy one, Empire of the Wolf, and the Fugitive Doctor Origins one. Side note, Once Upon a Time was supposed to be the start of another series, written by Dan Slott, but the other two have yet to materialise, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. To be honest, Titan seems to have been winding down its Doctor Who comic stories run over the last few years. Now a year consists of 4 issues and 1 volume. Isn't that right, 15th Doctor? Now, a crossover between 13 and 10 does sound very exciting, but I'm not sure if we needed 2 crossover events with them. And I think just the 1 storyline would have worked, but they went with 2 for some reason. Then again, Titan Comics are fairly well known for their Doctors crossovers, so if they did do a new multi-Doctor event in the vein of 4 Doctors, Supremacy of the Sidemen, or the Lost Dimension, they probably would have 13 join not only 10, but also 9, 11, and 12, maybe also War in there as well. 15 and maybe 14 too now, but as of March 2026, the 13th Doctor is only crossed over with the 10th Doctor in the comics. Interesting. But okay, 2 comic volumes, a couple of issues that form those volumes, released within 2020 to 2021. Okay, that's not enough to say that the 10th Doctor keeps invading the 13th Doctor stories. Well, if Titan Comics wasn't the first, it's one of the big 2 examples of this, and the other big example, probably the most egregious, is the Edge of Reality game. This game was released in early 2021. You have to help the Doctor and go through different points in time and space, and you have to stop a couple monsters, Daleks, Cybermen, Weeping Angels. Edge of Reality was released around a similar time when they were pushing Doctor Who games in early 2021. It was a good time for Doctor Who games. However, interestingly, the Edge of Reality decided to throw in David Tennant's 10th Doctor in there, and you got both him and Jodie Whittaker doing voices. So it was a very strange decision to add the 10th Doctor in there as well. And it's just them 2 again, no other Doctors. This was also around the time when Time Lord Victorious was going on. I'll get back to that because I'm not really counting that here either. But anyway, getting back on point. So Edge of Reality decided that it needed 2 Doctors, and the other one would be David Tennant, and it came out around a similar time to Titan's 10th Doctor crossover in 2 13th Doctor storylines. One for year 2, the other planned for year 2, but becoming its own thing later. And all of this whilst Time Lord Victorious was on as well. Yeah, interesting choice, but as Mr. TARDIS said in his video about the news announcement when David Tennant turns up and says, "Hello, I'm the Doctor, but probably not the one you're expecting." The quote Paul McGann says in Night of the Doctor, and he reuses that in a War Doctor story where he turns up as well, and it's become a quote. But yeah, other Doctors could probably say it in stuff like this now, and yeah, 10 says it here, and Mr. TARDIS in his reaction video, his news reaction, said, "Sorry, David Tennant, but you are definitely the Doctor everybody was expecting." And yeah, by this point in time, we were just expecting David Tennant, 10th Doctor, to turn up in a lot of stuff, and including 13th Doctor stuff, and it's starting to feel like the BBC didn't have faith in Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor, possibly due to the backlash of casting a female Doctor. But Series 11 did start fairly well viewing figures-wise. It's only as it went along it got a bit lower down, but that was also the same for Series 1 and 5 as well. Series 12 didn't do quite as good, so maybe it was in response to 13 being a bit less popular, considering her series weren't really being considered that popular. But then again, Peter Capaldi's didn't really get the same treatment when Series 8 and 9 were on, and they weren't very popular either. Maybe the viewing figures were a little bit better then, but then Series 10's figures started to go a bit lower down later on in that series' run, and again, 12 wasn't shoved aside so that you could get Colin Baker into some of his stories. Okay, that's a bad example, because Colin Baker is less popular than Peter Capaldi, but you get my point. Why does Jodie have to keep sharing her expanded media stories with David Tennant, or anybody else they wanted to throw in there, but it's currently only really David Tennant. Now, again, some crossover storylines or doing it once in a while, absolutely fine, in fact, amazing. But for it to keep happening, it's starting to get annoying, and Edge of Reality is probably where it's at its most egregious. I'm not done with games. I'm going to come back to a game which probably had the worst example later on, and it's not even 13th Doctor who has their thunder stolen with that, but I'll get back to that. So on a slightly different note, if the 10th Doctor isn't being inserted into 13th Doctor stories, like A Tale of Two Time Lords Alternating Currents or The Edge of Reality, sometimes they'll release the brand new 13th Doctor story and a brand new 10th Doctor story simultaneously. Enter the BBC Penguin Classics range, starting in 2021 with The Wonderful Wizard of Oz featuring the 13th Doctor and The Legends of Camelot featuring the 10th Doctor. This range has gone on to spawn a grand total of 8 books, and I haven't got the other 2, but here's some pictures. I want to get them, but haven't got them yet. Forbidden Planet, Waterstones, get them in fucking stock. Same with the Doomsday book. I can't find that anywhere in store. But I'm going to show you the covers again. Going in release order. And for the 2 I don't have, Frankenstein, Dracula, or the other way round, whatever I decide. Did you notice something on all of these covers? That's right, they all feature the Doctor of the story appearing in that, maybe the companion as well, except The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the first one, the 13th Doctor one, released alongside the 10th Doctor one, Legends of Camelot. And it doesn't feature the 13th Doctor. In fact, it actually spoils the story by revealing that Missy is actually the witch. The Wicked Witch of the West. Yes, this story is not canon to the Wicked stories. Sorry, guys. But why? I don't know. They rather spoil the twist of this version of the story, the Doctor Who take on Wizard of Oz, where the twist is Missy's the witch. They rather spoil that twist than put the 13th Doctor and all her fam on there. Because the fam are in that. And yet every other Doctor appears on their respective book's cover. Including the 10th Doctor, whose book was released at the same time. It's between this and the Doctor Who Annual 2022 not having the 13th Doctor on the front. She's on the back, but not on the front. Fans started to speculate that the BBC were actually trying to hide or erase the 13th Doctor from promotion and from new expanded media stories, because she wasn't really that popular, even though she was the face of the franchise at the time. The fans started to speculate that between these 2 books and David Tennant's 10th Doctor being shoved into other stories, they were trying to either erase or downgrade Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor's importance as the face of the franchise. For comparison's sake, this is the 2021 annual released during 2020. And then 2021 was when the 2022 annual was published. And the 2023 annual has all of the Doctors celebrating the 60th anniversary on it, published in 2022 before the 13th Doctor had regenerated. So they were already getting ready for the 60th anniversary celebrations. Interestingly, the 2014 one was the 50th anniversary annual, not the 2013 one, as it was published in 2013, which is very disappointing and disheartening, and it shows a lack of faith in your lead actor or the current incarnation of your lead character to sell the show's merchandise, no matter how popular or unpopular it is. It shows a lack of faith with the 13th Doctor as the face of the franchise, and I don't think the 15th Doctor's really been given that much better treatment, to be honest, although he hasn't had stories where Matt Smith turns up and steals his thunder, or Sylvester McCoy comes in and they have a crossover there, although that would be fun. I got one more example of the 10th Doctor and 13th Doctor stuff being released at the same time, and that was a pair of Pudsey Bears released in 2020 featuring the 10th and 13th Doctor costumes. These are really nice, but again, they're releasing the 10th Doctor one alongside the 13th Doctor one, who was then the incumbent incarnation. So it seems that you can't release something 13th Doctor without having a 10th Doctor thing, alongside it, this was the same thing as we saw with Penguin, the Penguin Doctor Who Classics range, though 4th and 11th Doctor ones would come out in 2021 as well. Interestingly, that's also the next two books in the Penguin range. One's 4 and one's 11, although 11 did come out the same year as the 3rd Doctor one. But again, yeah, 13th Doctor, you can't seem to release a 13th Doctor new thing without either the 10th Doctor being in there or having his own one released at the same time, or around the same time. Again, Big Finish is exempt from this because, one, they didn't have the 13th Doctor rights at the time, and second, they could do whatever the fuck they want. It's Big Finish. I would say the same about Titan, but because they had two 10 and 13 crossover events back to back, and they've started to wind down on Doctor Who comics since then, it's a bit more egregious with them. And that's not even mentioning the Time Lord Victorious multimedia event that was going on throughout 2020 and into early 2021, with David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, as the main face of the event. Now, other Doctors besides 8, 9, and 10 appeared in Time Lord Victorious, such as the 4th Doctor, and even the 13th Doctor apparently got some involvement in there. But between this and 10 being included in nearly everything or alongside a new 13th Doctor story, it was starting to become apparent to the fans, as mentioned, that they were trying to shove him in more and or try to erase 13 because it didn't look like they had confidence in her as the face of the franchise. Even Series 12 has episodes that take elements of RTD1 storyline and scripts, such as the fam hiding out in a construction site whilst going on the run in Spyfall Part 2, reminiscent to The Sound of Drums, and Sacha Dhawan's master acting a lot like John Sims, albeit with a bit more added sadness and a betrayal to his character. But it's not like that Chris Chibnall was gonna go and have Gallifrey destroyed or partly destroyed and kill off the Time Lords again like RTD did. Nah, he would not do anything like, oh, wait a minute, yes, he bloody well did. So that means Hellbent was the last time we saw the Time Lords division members aside, and the Doctor, the Master, and the Ronnie, of course. Hellbent was the last time we saw any regular Time Lords in the show on screen. Okay, Chris Chibnall did have a story direction that, yeah. it definitely did feel like it was cribbing a lot of RTD1. But yeah, fans did feel like Series 12 was definitely trying to harken back to the RTD1 era with some of these story decisions. And to be honest, with RTD1, Eccleston, and 10 especially being the most popular eras of the show, certainly of the modern show at least, I can understand the BBC wanting to go back to those periods. But yeah, just trying to cram it into the 13th Doctor era just isn't. It doesn't really work out for her very well, does it? It's like it's not being very much fair on her. Oh well, but it's at least not, say, at the end of all of this, Jodie Whittaker regenerates, and you don't bring back David Tennant to play a brand new incarnation of the Doctor after playing one before. No, you get someone brand new in. I heard that Shitty Gatwa guy was really nice. Let's get him on board. And yeah, we just carry on as we left off. No returning to an old Oh, you got to be kidding me, Russell. Yeah, the whole... Yeah, I guess on retrospect, although it wasn't initially planned, the whole act trying to be like RTD1 during 13's later series, or at least Series 12, results in the ultimate payoff of David Tennant coming back, this time playing the 14th Doctor. Well, at least now they can post their tenants' face over all the merchandise and have brand new 14th Doctor stories without having to invade anybody else's. So, what brand new 14th Doctor stories did we get? Well, there was the ongoing Doctor Who magazine comic Liberation of the Daleks, which I do have, but it's buried all the way over there. Okay, and that lasted the whole year, plus an additional story with the 14th Doctor and Donna in the following issue before the 15th Doctor one started. I think there was a short story or two somewhere. There was a novelization version of Destination Skaro in the 2024, 25 annual that was later also published in a short story collection. There was Destination Skaro itself. Does that count? Can we count Minisodes? In that case, there was CBB's bedtime stories. Guys, I'm struggling for 14th Doctor content here. We haven't even had 14th Doctor Big Finish audios announced yet. We haven't had any 14th Doctor Titan comics. We haven't had any 14th Doctor BBC audiobooks. We haven't had a 14th Doctor book yet. Even the War Doctor got a book. Engines of War. And even though he didn't get his own comic run, he does appear in the 11th Doctor's second year from Titan and one installment of his last Doctor Who magazine comic story. I think this is his last one. And of course, Big Finish have done audios with first John Hurt and later Jonathan Carley. Even the Fugitive Doctor's got more expanded media thanks to Big Finish and Titan than the 14th Doctor. Although she's also still yet to have a book. For all of this 10th Doctor pushing during Jodie's run, once they get David Tennant back as the face of the franchise, and we got the bare minimum of expanded media, even after he's bi-generation. And the bi-generation opens up the possibility for more stories. So where are they? For all of this 10th Doctor pushing in the early 2020s, by the time David Tennant returns to being the face of the franchise as the 14th Doctor, heck, we don't even have the 10th or 14th Doctors turn up for the Doomsday multimedia event. In fact, actually, only about half the Doctors only turn up for that. 13 in a sort of a presenter role for the games, but not actually properly appearing. I don't know if the 12th Doctor's in two things. He doesn't meet Doom in this, but he's in this, and he's also in an audiobook. And of course, the first Doctor in the bookends. But the other Doctors who appear are number 2 and 9 in that book that I wanted to get but haven't got yet. Number 6 in the Doctor Who magazine comic supplement, and number 8 in the Big Finish box set that I have in my hands. I was about to say right behind me. And like I said, the Games has 13 as a presenter. Also, Comedian pretends to be her at some point. But yeah, Doom doesn't meet the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th War, 10th, 11th, or Fugitive Doctors, and doesn't really meet the 13th Doctor properly. Or 14th Doctor. She doesn't meet the 14th Doctor either, who was the incumbent Doctor. Or 15. There's no post main event bonus stories with her meeting 14 or 15 or characters from the 14-15 era. Let me get this straight, BBC and merchandise rights holders and license holders. You were pushing the 10th Doctor more in the early 2020s during the middle of Jodie Whittaker's run than you were pushing the 14th Doctor when he was the face of the franchise. Again, some of this might have been to do with Russell and what he wanted for the 60th specials, but even afterwards, even after the giggle, well, now we've got a new face of the franchise. Well, I say now, I mean as of December 2023. I mean, right now it's kind of a bit vague. But as of December 2023, the face of the franchise is Ncuti Gatwa, the 15th Doctor, and most of the expanded media stories, most of the brand new stuff, is going to feature the 15th Doctor. He's going to be the face of the franchise. He's going to get brand new expanded media stories alongside his television adventures. Yes, there'll still be brand new expanded media stories for past Doctors, but in terms of being the face of the franchise, until at least May 2025, it was shooty. And then, summer 2024, there was an announcement that Doctor Who and Star Trek Lower Decks were having a crossover. Doctor Who's Lost in Time game and the Star Trek's Lower Decks mobile game were having a limited time crossover where characters from each franchises would cross over with each other. So you could have the Star Trek Lower Decks characters in Doctor Who Lost in Time and the Doctor turn up in Lower Decks' mobile game. And you got to see the different art styles of the two. What an exciting concept. Heck, even the 15th Doctor in Space Babies even said to Ruby that, oh, we should go and meet the people of Star Trek. We should go to Star Trek. And I believe it's Enterprise had a TARDIS cameo. Okay, so that means the 15th Doctor and Ruby are going to make a crossover with Star Trek, or maybe the 14th Doctor if they wanted David Tennant because he's the most iconic and most popular aside from Tom Baker. I think they're joint in terms of popularity, but iconicness is Tom Baker. So the Doctor who comes over to cross over with Star Trek Lower Decks is in fact the 50... Oh, you've got to be joking. The 10th Doctor? What? Not even the 14th Doctor, it's the 10th Doctor. 14th Doctor would still make sense if you wanted to push David Tennant. But no, it's the 10th Doctor again.
God damn it! Got all my hopes up for nothing. Guess I'll have to leave and come back some other time.
Okay, this is probably got to be the worst one. Okay, I ranted a bit about the pushing 10th Doctor or David Tennant into the Jodie Whittaker 13th Doctor content, whether that's crossover or new stories released at the same time or new products released at the same time. But I think this is got to be the worst one. Not only are you overshadowing Ncuti Gatwa, but you're actually overshadowing the other David Tennant Doctor, the 14th Doctor, who would have made more sense to be here if you wanted a David Tennant Doctor. Why did they go with David Tennant 10th Doctor? Why not go with the current Doctor? Or, if you wanted David Tennant, the previous Doctor? But no, they go back for the 10th Doctor again. Oh, whilst I'm on a rant, Classic Who, don't think you're exempt from this either. You tried to push Tom Baker quite a lot as well, even though there were other Doctors later. Now, granted, Tom Baker is an icon, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but in some cases you may overshadow the following Doctors after him by doing a lot of prominence with them. But they didn't do with any of the older Doctors what the BBC and the license holders seem to be trying to do with the 10th Doctor in the early to mid 2020s by trying to shove him into 13th Doctor stories or a lot of release stories or products alongside hers, or into something that really should have been with the then incumbent Doctor, like the 15th or 14th Doctors. And then when you have David Tennant as the face of the franchise, you do the bare minimum of expanded media stories with 14. Even 10 started to wind down as well, possibly due to him coming back to the series. So yeah, I just wanted to get that off my chest, my kind of frustration and dissatisfaction with how the BBC and the license holders handled that. I'm not going to say that they're probably bad crossovers or bad stories or whatnot, but I think that the attitude to let's have the 10th Doctor and everything, or release some new 10th Doctor stuff at the same time as some new 13th Doctor stuff, or let's have the 10th Doctor be the focus of, or one of the Doctor's main focus of the first multimedia event. It felt like they really were trying to push that Doctor more than their incumbent Doctor. And I feel like it was a shame. At the very least, Time Lord Victorious was a bit more balanced with its main three Doctors. Well, okay, more so for the 8th. Actually, to be honest, I think 9 got a bit shafted. But Time Lord Victorious stuff aside, it just felt like they really were trying to push it. Even Doctor Who Redacted had a lot of RTD1 elements in it. And the Lonely Assassins game is a sequel to Blink. Oh, look at that. Coincidence? I think not. Okay, that was set at the same time, but you get my point. And there's also an episode of Redacted that also serves as a sequel to Lonely Assassins, or a companion episode at least. So yeah, it just felt like the license holders were pushing the 10th Doctor more than the incumbent Doctor. And then when David Tennant does become the face of the franchise, And then when David Tennant's no longer the face of the franchise, they still push the older of his two Doctors, not even the one that he played the previous year to the Star Trek crossover games. No, the one he played back in the late 2000s. Since then, they've focused on 15th Doctor stuff. Even when it doesn't seem like he's the incumbent Doctor anymore. Fuck me if I know what's going on with Billy Piper right now. I'm hoping this time next year I get to laugh at myself for saying I don't know what's happened, and future me is saying, I know what happens. God, I look forward to that. Alright, thank you guys for watching this video. Sorry if this went on a bit long, sorry if I went a bit repetitive, got a bit annoyed, etc. But yeah, still really like the 10th Doctor, and I'm sure the stories they did, etc. are all really good. It's just a bit annoying that they kind of overshadowed 13 and later 15, and even 14 to a degree, with their constant pushing of 10. But whatever. We got Circuit Breaker this year. We got the Fugitive Doctor taking the limelight. So until we find out what's going on with the Billy Piper situation at Christmas, this year is the year of the Fugitive Doctor. Right, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll be back next time with a more positive 10th Doctor video, and also a planned 14th Doctor video later down the line. See you guys next time. Goodbye.
Ow, easy, going man!
Transcended.
Transcended my ass!
Ah, the old exploding bear trap in the ass trick. Sorry.